how it all started. My cousin Charles. Everybody has that person that gets them into bass fishing. I had a family friend that really kind of took me to the pond we had on our property to go fish. His name was Willie Logan. Willie was a great guy. Got me kind of into catching bass, but he did not know anything about tournaments. Didn't fish any tournaments. But my cousin Charles, it's my dad's sister's son. He's about 15 years older than me, and this was a picture of Charles and I when I was little. Charles was big into the music scene, played in multiple bands, very talented guitarist and decent singer, and was actually lead singer in some bands. And that's really how it all really did start. Was that Charles? He liked to fish, and he grew up around the water, and Charles and I, we would go play sports and do stuff together because he was like a big brother to me, the big brother I never had. But there's Charles and I, a little backyard football, and then after the backyard football, what do you think we did? We went straight to the pond and went to catching some bass. same outfit, same day. It was just pretty cool. Tragically, my cousin Charles passed away earlier this year in a car wreck. But it's not something that I've talked about before publicly. But close friends knew about that. But Charles and I, we would go fishing. We started in that backyard pond, as I was showing you, and we would just go more. So we outgrew our ponds. We wanted to go to other ponds. So then Charles and I started going to other ponds, and then we started smashing them at some ponds that had some bigger fish. I mean, these are 5-pounders. That was the picture I showed you at the beginning. Charles and I, same day here, Charles and I going out whacking some big bass in those ponds. We'd bounce around all kind of different ponds, go all over, and we'd take a few and bring them back to our pond. We'd leave a bunch that we were catching. We had a blast. We'd run it all over, and then so we finally outgrew the ponds, and Charles and I talked my dad into getting us a bass boat, and we had a little 17-foot nitro. We used to run around every lake, Lake Gaston, James River, Bugs Island, all that kind of stuff. About the time I was 13 to 15 or 16 years old, and about the time I was probably 15 or so, Charles and I went to Bugs Island, and it was a nice cool morning. I think it was probably September, October, something like that. It was about the time that the chug bug was really popped on the scene, and 17-foot bass boat, two guys on the boat. Charles was on the back, and I did not hear him, and he stepped up to the middle part of the boat, and the next thing you know, Charles got a chug bug in his face. But yeah, we were down there and went to Henderson, North Carolina. Got that chug bug out of his face, and got back out on the water and kept fishing. We got back out in the water by like 10 a.m. and I ended up having a good day. But Charles is the one that got me into the tournaments. He, as I mentioned, he was into the music scene. He was raised in Roanoke, which I live in Salem, Roanoke now, and so he grew up in playing music in Roanoke. He was good friends with a couple of good musicians, and at the time, one of their sisters of some good friends of Charles's, was dating a former pro bass fisherman, and Charles got to know that guy. That guy was Rick Hawkins, and Charles got to know Rick. And Charles kept telling me, he said, man, you got to meet Rick. You got to meet Rick. You got to go with Rick. You got to go with Rick. And so Charles introduced me to Rick about the time I was 15. I've been friends with Rick Hawkins ever since. Rick was one of my number one mentors. When I was 15, and I think it was the first or second time I ever met Rick, he introduced me to Ed Lochran, because Rick had known Ed since Ed was probably 15, and at the time Ed was in his early 20s, and sure enough, the three of us have been friends ever since. The three of us have been friends ever since. But Charles was so still into the music scene, he would actually produce sound. He would run the soundboard and things like that for bigger groups. He did all kind of stuff, traveled all over from New York City to down into Florida doing his thing. So he never pursued the tournaments any more than like the local regional level. Charles and I fished our first tournament on Smith Mountain Lake when I was 15 years old. We had that little 17-foot nitro, and we took it from the Hales Ford area and just fished within like a mile or so of there. I think we ended up with 4 keepers that day. It was a September tournament, and we had no clue about anything. We had no clue about the schooling bite, no clue about any of that kind of stuff that was going on at that time, and that was how all those tournaments were getting dominated. I remember looking over and seeing guys bringing in 10 fish bags, 30, 33 pounds, and I said, man, that's something else. Our little 4 fish didn't do anything. And Charles and I, from meeting Rick, Rick taught he and I a whole lot. And then, like I said, Charles just kind of did not continue to pursue the tournaments because he was doing so much with the music. But he and I would get together occasionally and go fishing when I was into my early 20s, really. And then Charles just kept going on with his music career and doing all that. But he's the one that introduced me to Rick. Like I said, Rick, one of my number one mentors, along with Ed, really, of getting me into tournament bass fishing, and kind of educating me on everything. And the other real fishing mentor I had early on was Dr. Greg South, and he came from the very first BFL, or back then it was called Redman, the very first Redman tournament that I ever fished. I was legally not old enough I was 15, but I lied and I said I was 16, and they didn't bat an eye. I mean, they're just trying to fill tournaments. I got paired up with a guy that lived 10 minutes from me, Larry Staler. Larry's a super great guy. Kept in touch with him and his wife forever. Larry was good friends with Dr. South. He introduced me to Dr. South. Dr. South became one of my good mentors as well. Dr. South finished second in the Bassmaster Classic back, I believe it was in '82, the one that Rick Clunn won on the Arkansas River. Dr. South came in second in that classic, fished a number of years back then, was good friends with a lot of those guys, traveled Woo Daves and all that kind of stuff. But my cousin Charles, he was the one that, old chug bug in the face, he was the one that really got me into the tournaments. We had no idea what we were doing when we started out, but luckily he knew Rick, and really just kind of the rest is history, as they say. But as I mentioned earlier, Charles passed away in a car accident earlier this year, and one of my good family friends, Billy Herndon, was the one that called me and told me, because he worked the accident. He lived down there near where Charles was living, and called me and because he knew Charles and he knew my aunt and everything, and just a really tragic deal. So you always have to wonder when you're out there fishing, who's up there watching after you. And I feel like that I have a lot of people watching after me. So it's just one of those wild deals that in life, you never know what's going to happen. You never know who's going to be influential in your life. So you have to just be kind as you can be to everybody, and you never know. My cousin Charles got me into it. Even though I stuck a chug bug in his face, he kept fishing with me. So there he is, Charles Morse. first cousin got me into it. That's the one that got me into it. So drop down there below and let me know who got you into tournament bass fishing, if you're into tournament bass fishing, or who got you into bass fishing in general. Drop it down there, give them a little shout out. I'm just giving my cousin Charles a little shout out here, so hopefully it'll inspire everybody to kind of think about who got you into it, and maybe we can get other people into it so we can help grow this sport.